Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Real Science Exchange, the pubcast where leading scientists and industry professionals meet over a few drinks to discuss the latest ideas and trends in animal nutrition. Hi, I'm Scott Sorrell, one of your hosts here tonight at the Real Science Exchange. Tonight, we'll be focusing on poultry diseases, the costs, and implications. We'll also look at new ways to manage disease as the industry moves toward reducing antibiotic use. We have two special guests joining us at the table tonight. First, Dr. TJ Gaydos. Welcome, TJ, to the Real Science Exchange.
Thank you.
Dr. Gaydos joined us for the Real Science Lecture Series back in February to talk more specifically about coccidiosis and the implications of that disease. Tonight, we'll continue our discussions on coccidiosis, but we'll also venture a little further to include other diseases such as HPAI, as well as how the industry is evolving to address consumer preferences and production challenges. Before we dive in, TJ, what's in your glass tonight? And is there any stories behind how you chose that?
Yeah, I'm drinking Woodford Reserve tonight, and it's an extra mini that I got on an airplane yesterday.
Oh, okay. I didn't know they served that good stuff on the airplanes. That's not what they give me. I need to fly another airline, I guess. Yeah, great. I see you brought a guest with you tonight. Can you tell us a little bit about him and how you guys met?
Yeah, guest tonight is Andy, and he is the broiler manager at Miller Poultry. Miller Poultry is one of the accounts that I work for as a poultry veterinarian. We've worked together for a little over a year now.
Oh, very well. So welcome, Andy, to the Real Science Exchange. Also, I understand that you're working late tonight, so you're not drinking. So what will you be having after work tonight?
Sure, yeah, not yet, but after work, I'm simple. A cold beer is always good.
Yeah, excellent. Always a good choice. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and then what can you tell us about Miller Poultry?
Sure. Yeah, I appreciate you guys having me with you. And Dr. Gaydos, like you said, we've worked together the last year or so. Personally, my background, I don't have a poultry background. I went to school for business. However, I grew up around agriculture, not specifically poultry, but my parents and grandparents raised crops, always grew up in a rural area. And, after college, after a few different stops, I kind of fell into this role at Miller Poultry as a service technician and enjoyed it. Really enjoyed working with our contracted growers, working, with chickens and learning about them since I didn't have a background with it. And that was just about 6 years ago. And about 3 years ago, I was promoted to the broiler manager, and it's been good ever since. A little bit about Miller Poultry, I guess. We're not a big company, but we're not a small company by any means. We process under 1 million birds a week. I think if you look in the United States listings, we're like the 24th, 25th largest company for poultry. We're kind of a niche market. We cater to antibiotic-free and organic chicken. So all of our chicken is antibiotic-free, with about 25% of our production being organically raised. So that's another layer into raising birds that we've all learned. We are a vertically integrated company, which means we have our own hatchery, our own feed mills, processing plant, even grain facilities that we get our ingredients from for our feed. So, yeah, that's just a brief kind of outline about Miller Poultry.
And I understand you're in Indiana. What part of Indiana is that in? Is that in the eastern side, northeast?
We're in the north central, so we're actually right under the Michigan line. We're that far north. We have production facilities in Michigan as well. Both broiler and broiler breeder farms are in Michigan. Almost 50% of our production does come from Michigan on the broiler side. So that's kind of a unique thing for us, crossing state lines. However, our headquarters processing facility is in Orland, Indiana, which is towards Ohio a little bit. That would be kind of the northeast part of the state.
Okay. And did you go to school? You said you got a business degree. What's your pedigree there?
Sure. Well, I bounced around a little bit. I started school in Indiana. I went to the University of Southern Indiana for a couple of years, transferred to the University of Southern Mississippi, where I got my bachelor's degree in business administration. My emphasis was small business entrepreneurship. So I always wanted to kind of work for myself or on a small business level. And this has really kind of fit because just one of the first entrepreneurship jobs was farming, right? So that kind of fit into my background, and we kind of have a small business feel here at Miller Poultry, especially on the live side.
Hmm. Excellent. Well, it's a pleasure meeting you, Andy, and
Thank
look
you.
forward to our conversation tonight. We also have Dr. Zach Lohman back with us tonight once again. Zach, what are you drinking tonight? What's in your glass?
I am drinking Diet Coke at the moment.
Diet Coke. I see.
Yep, been busy.
All right. Very well. Well, I went with something a little different. I usually have a bourbon. I went with Jemisin's. I don't know about you guys, but we've got a bourbon shortage here in Northeast Pennsylvania. I go to the state store and there's nothing on the shelf. So they've been advertising Jemisin's on the TV, and I saw that. I guess I'm a slave to marketing and advertising, so I picked it up. It's pretty good, actually. I would recommend it.
Tonight's pubcast stories are brought to you by the Keysure line of chelated minerals. Keysure and Keysure Plus deliver proven and consistent bioavailability to maximize performance, and a no-frills pricing approach for greater profitability. Visit balchem.com to learn more.
TJ, we got to know you a little bit on the webinar back in February. Give us a little bit of background about yourself and a little bit about your practice.
Yeah, so originally I'm from Ohio, currently live in Dallas, Texas. I'm a poultry veterinarian. That's why I'm here, I guess. I did my undergrad at Kent State, and I did my veterinary school at The Ohio State University. From there, I went and did a master's of avian medicine at the University of Georgia. From there, I worked at a couple of different companies in the industry. And about 3 years ago, I left working in the corporate world and decided to branch out on my own and start my own veterinary practice. Work in a variety of areas, do technical support for some of the large allied companies. In addition, I work as a clinical veterinarian for several integrators, one of which is Miller Poultry. Just expanded my practice and hired a new veterinarian, a recent graduate, Sabrina Hurst. So she lives in Georgia and in the Athens area, and she's going to be helping with accounts out east.
Excellent. Well, welcome to the exchange. Glad to have you here tonight. To start us off, what's some of the biggest challenges that we're seeing in the poultry industry today? I think I know the answer to that, but we'll tee that up for you.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest issues that we're having right now is avian influenza. At the time of recording, we've lost about 39 million birds to the disease this year. Certainly not as many birds so far as the previous outbreak in 2015, but it's pretty bad outbreak. In addition to the loss of birds and the loss of birds into the market, it's the amount of paperwork that goes along with having birds and creating a control zone has been a burden on the companies for sure. Andy could probably talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, Andy, why don't you tell us what you guys have been dealing with there? Or have you been able to avoid it so far?
Sure. Yeah. Like TJ said, it's all over, and it's hit closer to home than it has previously. I wasn't with the company in 2015, but talking with some folks that were, it is closer to us. We have been part of a control zone. Has not affected Miller Poultry firsthand, but the amount of, paperwork, hurdles, routine changes, logistics that has turned our world upside down significantly the last month, 5-6 weeks. Just from the logistics side of things, everything needs to be documented, sealed, signed, and approved for any kind of a movement of birds. And that's a main thing that I do here at Miller Poultry is I schedule the chicks going into farms and the birds going out of farms. So there was a lot of limitations put on, but our team responded really well. They jumped right in, and it was a testament to our team, really, how quickly they adapted. And it's just kind of a new normal, and we're dealing with it and watching it close. So that's kind of where we're at currently.
Do you have some of it in the neighborhood or in the area?
Mm-hmm. In the area, in the same county as us, actually.
Okay. I think Zach and I were talking earlier that the way it's spreading is a little bit different than perhaps it has in the past.
Sure.
Can any of you guys expound on that just a bit?
I don't know the. Go ahead, DJ.
Sorry, Andy. Typically the avian influenza, high path avian influenza, comes along with migratory birds coming out of the south as they head north in the springtime, and that's been true this year. They've followed up, and if you follow the path of the migratory birds, they've left little influenza presence along the way. But recently we've had some more outbreaks, some individual cases that are where the ducks should have already left. So it's a little bit concerning that maybe this outbreak is going to last a little bit longer than currently is being predicted. But no one really knows how it's going to end.
TJ, why do you think it's kind of like all over now instead of just being in certain little areas on certain flyways?
That's a great question. I wish I knew the answer to that. But for whatever reason, it spread into it's mostly in the central flyway for sure, and the Atlantic flyway has a large number of certainly wild bird positives. But we've been really lucky as an industry, and the eastern and the Atlantic flyways have had far less commercial cases than the central flyway, and I think a lot of it is just bad luck. Certainly biosecurity and attention to detail is important, but I really think a lot of it plays down to bad luck, or good luck as the case may be.
Zach was telling me this is a more pathogenic than perhaps what we've had in the past. What do we know about that? And where did it originate and when?
Oh, we don't know for certain if it's more pathogenic. I feel the same way. It feels that way, but they're currently testing these strains at some of the labs in the U.S. and hopefully we should have an answer pretty soon to exactly how pathogenic this virus is. Where it came from, it's a great question. Exactly where it came from, we don't know. This strain, the H5N1, is the Eurasian strain. It seems to be very similar to or the same as the strain that's been plaguing Europe for the last year or so. So it's a Eurasian lineage, but where it came from, I personally don't know. One of the virologists might know.
Yeah. So you said it's been plaguing Europe for a while. Is it expected that it's going to be here for a while, year after year for a bit before it burns out?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I hope not.
We hope not.
Yeah.
We hope not.
Yeah, very well. So TJ, you get a call from one of your producers. They've got a problem with it. What kind of advice do you do? What's the first thing that you do for them?
Call the government.
Okay.
And lock down all movement until you know for sure.
Okay.
As the last thing you want to do is spread it around.
Yeah. And not much you can do then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Andy, anything you'd like to add to that?
That's about exactly how it happened. We're pretty close with the state of Indiana, state of Michigan, and that's exactly how it went. This was a known case. There was turkeys in southern Indiana, backyard flocks here and there. So yeah, we stay in pretty good communication. The state of Indiana does a good job of letting their producers know where and what's happening, and then working together with us to outline a plan. But yeah, when it was close to us, we locked everything down, kind of assessed where we were, and then started going through the necessary procedures just so we can continue business. We still have chicken to send to customers. So going about doing that changed, but that's the end goal. At the end of the day, we got to get chicken to our stores. So
What is the incubation period for this? Do you know, TJ? How long after exposure before they actually start showing signs that you can tell?
No, I don't know exactly off the top of my head. So edit that out. But what we can say is that the cases that we've seen, certainly in ducks, they didn't appear to really get sick, and The broilers that got sick, from what I understand, it felt like dermatitis. Of course, I never saw any of them directly, but it had a mortality pattern that was similar to dermatitis, and but they didn't see any lesions specific to other diseases. And knowing that AI was in the area made people concerned, and they sent samples in, and sure enough, they were positive.
From our understanding, the last couple positives in our area were just through routine testing. Birds weren't necessarily showing signs right away, but eventually were leading to there.
Well, let's transition then. TJ, when you're not consulting on avian influenza, what other kinds of calls and consulting do you do for your customers?
Yeah, probably the majority of the business is working on vaccine programs, biosecurity programs. It's a lot of the business is program based because we don't certainly in the antibiotic-free production realm, there's not a lot of treatment that can be done. So it's poultry production in general is mostly about prevention of disease. So we're always working to optimize those the production of those birds through prevention and not necessarily treatment of disease. Of course, I'm working with them, with customers to help production, improve performance, improve animal welfare, food safety related concerns as well, reduction of salmonella, working in the processing plant, things like that. Absolutely.
Okay. You mentioned antibiotic-free. Andy, I think you said you're antibiotic-free. How long has the operation been antibiotic-free? And was there a process that you guys went through to transfer to that?
Not exactly sure how long. During my whole time, for sure. I know there was a process going from antibiotic, conventional to antibiotic-free. Similar, we were previously a non-GMO company as well, and that was also a process. We currently use conventional grain again. But yeah, we're 100% antibiotic-free now. It kind of makes my life a little easier knowing that we don't have two different lines to compete with, or, as soon as something goes wrong, we have an easy fix, where we rely a lot more on, like TJ was saying, good management, attention to details and prevention. And that's how I like it, to tell you the truth. I like to work with our grower base on, good management practices, good animal husbandry. So then we don't have to rely on, outside antibiotics or any kind of medication or treatment. There's nothing wrong with, a lot of water, feed, and good flowing air. I think that can cure a lot of things.
Mm-hmm. Have you been using any essential oils or probiotics, prebiotics, those kinds of things? Is that
We
part
do.
of your?
Yep. So, we do have a company nutritionist that works with TJ and the production staff on different probiotics and prebiotics. We've tried a number of things, different essential oils, oregano, things like that as well, that can be used in organic production. And yeah, just finding the right recipe, quote recipe, to have a good performing bird. So yeah, we've worked in and out of those areas for sure.
Yeah. So how do you find that right recipe?
Trial and error.
Trial and error.
I
Okay.
think
That's it.
for sure.
Trial and error.
There's trial and error, and there's what has worked previously. It's good to rotate these products and these items. You always got to look at cost too. How is the market on certain ingredients? It fluctuates. So trying to find the right balance from performance to cost savings, that keeps us employed for sure.
Yeah. TJ, when you come onto a farm antibiotic-free and they're having a bit of a challenge with coccidiosis, what's the first thing you reach for out of your bag to help treat it?
Yeah, the first thing that I reach for is, we talk about management. If they're having a significant issue with coccidiosis, there's a few different things that we can use. You can acidify the water. You can use acidified copper sulfate. You can use saponins and different essential oils as type products as well. But really, it's all about working with the grower to help reduce the impact of coccidiosis on those birds. It's about managing the life cycle of the parasite.
Talk a little bit about your opinion of and use of vaccines. Is that something you employ quite often?
Every bird,
Every bird. Okay.
absolutely. Lots of vaccines.
Okay. Now, I recall from your webinar that there's a bunch of different cocci strains out there, but do the vaccines work on all of them, or are they very specific to the strain?
They're specific to the species of Coccidiosis. There's three major Coccidiosis species that affect broilers: Emeria acerulina, Emeria maxima, and Emeria tenella. Also, Emeria mitis plays a role, but really the ones that we're concerned about are maxima and tenella. Both of those can really damage chickens, and maxima is really important for feed conversion and efficiency.
And can they have both of those at the same time?
They can.
Okay. Very well. Well, yeah, one thing I was wanting to kind of know is there geographic differences in terms of where you find these different species?
No, there's not a geographic difference in the species. There is one part of the life cycle of the species is outside of the bird. So when the bird defecates those oocysts, they're not infectious. They have to sporulate in the litter, and that sporulation process requires temperature, humidity, and oxygen. And so the easiest thing to control in the litter is the humidity. So, depending on where you're at geographically, it can be really difficult to have enough moisture in the litter to complete that life cycle. If you're growing chickens in the desert, for example, it can be pretty hard. Or if you're in the northern United States and you're using a lot of supplemental heat in the wintertime, that can really dry your litter out and make coccidiosis cycling really difficult.
Jose, did they make any litter amendments that you can put in to make it a less ideal environment?
Andy, you can take that one if you want.
Sure. Yeah, we use litter amendments here at Miller Poultry. PLT is the mainstay that's in a lot of poultry integrators, from my understanding, which acidifies the litter. It's more for ammonia control and pathogen control. So we do use a PLT and acidification. On the organic side of things, it's a different story. There's even fewer tools in our toolbox, is what we like to say. So there's different microbial techniques that can use. They're not super effective, as most organic products are, but it's something that we can still use to try to minimize pathogens, ammonia, things like that.
Yeah.
I'm curious, Andy. You guys said that you were non-GMO at one time, and then you switched away from that. What caused you to do that?
A lot of that, I believe, came from the sales side of things. As more and more products out there have the non-GMO label, it became more diluted, I feel. There was less desire from customer base for a non-GMO. There was some cost differences between a non-GMO grain and a GMO grain. However, I think at the end of the day, it was demand. We weren't getting asked by our end consumer to keep producing non-GMO. It wasn't a selling factor like maybe it was, 5-10 years ago.
Okay. And do you still see the antibiotic-free and the organic? Is that market still growing and strong for you guys?
For sure. Seems like TJ might have better statistics, but it seems like over half of chicken out there anymore has antibiotic-free claims, or at least some kind of line. From our side of things, we do see an increase on the organic side too. I think more and more people do want to know where their food comes from, and that's all part of it. Being transparent through marketing, through social media, or whatever it is, they want to know how their chicken's being raised and how it's being taken care of. So from animal welfare to, organic or antibiotic-free movements, they're all factors in this.
Mm-hmm. Do you see that continuing and just continue to grow? And do you guys monitor that at all? Consumer sentiment trends?
Sure. Yeah.
Try to stay ahead of it?
I know we try to stay ahead of it for sure. And I think I think Miller Poultry was in a great position to start with because they started antibiotic-free, I want to say in the 90s, when it wasn't necessarily a big trend. We worked with customers like Whole Foods from the beginning, and that has really helped our business grow for sure. So
Okay.
staying on top of those trends and continuing to listen to our customer base, whether it's animal welfare standards, different certifications or requirements, we always try to stay on the cutting edge of those things.
So all your birds go to Whole Foods?
Not all of them. Nope.
Okay.
They are one of our customers. Miller Poultry typically in retail stores, grocery stores in the Midwest, but as far as the Rocky Mountain region to the Southeast, you can find our chicken throughout the country.
Mm-hmm. TJ, do you have a feel for where the industry is going relative to trends and things like antibiotic-free, GMO-free, organic?
Yeah, I think antibiotic-free, we're going to continue producing more and more birds without antibiotics in the U.S. and certainly globally. Organic production, I think there'll be an increase in that as well, but there's only a certain percentage of the population that wants to or feels the need or sees the advantage of buying organic chicken or produce. I don't know that that's necessarily for everyone, so I'm sure there is a limit somewhere to how much organic production can be sold in the marketplace.
So with all the supply chain shortages and issues, do you see an increase or decrease or no change in your product?
We've seen changes for sure. It's affected everybody. It's not specific to us in the poultry industry or Miller Poultry. Anything from feed ingredients being hung up on a boat somewhere, waiting to get processed, to fuel and inflation and things like that. So yes, it's caused changes for us. However, we try to here at Miller Poultry, we try to make sure that we're still continuing to put out a good quality product. And that's really what we're all about, is a top quality product.
All right. Any other topics, guys, that we need to dig into?
What other challenges do you have besides just Coxie? Or is that your main one?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think generally in the industry, intestinal health as a whole is a problem. Coccidiosis is always a part of that. Coccidiosis control is really is entwined with broiler production because those oocysts, those organisms are everywhere. Bronchitis virus, infectious bronchitis virus is a problem in certain. It's a concern everywhere, but there's certain strains that are more pathogenic and causing issues in different parts of the country right now. So we're working with that pretty frequently. Blackhead disease is a problem. Constantly working on that on longer lived birds like pullets and breeders. That's also another pretty constant challenge.
Is it even possible to eradicate coccidiosis at all?
No,
it's not. It's just ubiquitous in the environment.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. What do you guys think is the next big thing in the poultry industry? What's the future starting to look like? What's going to be the next big trend? Is it something that we don't even expect? Are we seeing hints?
I'm not sure exactly. What we see on our side is definitely animal welfare continues to be a major topic. Not necessarily concern, but intrigue. Like I said previously, a lot of people want to know where their chicken's coming from these days, what they're eating. So being more visible, more transparent, I can see that continuing. There's going to be more technology, better technology out there to try to be more efficient, but sometimes it seems like we take a step back where animal welfare concerns want you to go back and grow a chicken slower, or raise it outside on a pasture and things like that, where maybe it's not the most economical or the most efficient, It seems like there's more customer demands for it, and I can see that continuing.
So you say they want transparency. How do we do that? And they want to know what they're being fed. Do you put that on a website, or what's some of the things you guys are doing to be more transparent to consumers?
Sure, yeah, we hit all that. We try to market our product that way through websites, social media. We work with an outside third-party agency for animal welfare, GAP, Global Animal Partnership, which also is sending out those messages. It wasn't that way probably 10, 15 years ago, where people either cared that much or companies were that transparent, but there's definitely a call for it, and we get a lot of customer comments about wanting to know more.
Yeah. So you said that consumers want the chickens out on pasture, but that maybe not be the most economical. How do you have that conversation with them, or do you?
Well, it's tough when probably a lot of your consumers may not be familiar with how agriculture practices, take place. Raising a chicken on an open pasture looks good in a brochure, but there's challenges. There's hawks, there's foxes, there's predators, there's environmental things, from especially cold weather where we're from to really hot weather down south. Like, that's not necessarily the best environment for a chicken. However, letting it, have the option to go outside, I think that's a great thing. If a chicken wants to go outside on a nice day, that's great. We produce some pretty good organic chicken that performs really well. And I think that fresh air, that natural environment is helpful.
Mm-hmm. I was listening to a podcast the other day. I wish I could remember the company, but they've basically got robotic pens that move the chickens across the terrain that they have there. And I forget how many. They're raising quite a few birds that way. Do you know? Have you guys heard of that before?
I haven't seen it personally, but I have heard of, different robotics to be used. And it's an old school method. Just walking through the barn, getting the chickens up to feed and water more often is beneficial. So I can see if that could be automated, for sure. That could
Yeah.
be a trend.
Yeah, actually, what I was hearing was they actually had them out on pasture, and they were open pens. I think they had roofs on them and everything, and it would just gradually move them from spot to spot. So anyway,
Was that in the U.S.?
I think it was, Zach. I'll have to look into it and let you know. So, Zach, what are your thoughts? What's the next big thing?
I don't know. I think welfare is a big one. I know a lot of customers that I work with, even ones that haven't traditionally done much with welfare programs, have recently been stepping it up and getting 2, 3. I think one of them has 3 third-party audits that come in of various different welfare programs and standards. So I think that's a big thing coming up, especially as people pay more attention to it. So chickens are on the news with all the AI, so people are going to start looking and researching more. And as they do that, I think they'll start looking more at that.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with both of them. I'm going to take it a different direction, though. I think one of the future things is going to be more automation. Like Andy was talking about with the robots that are in the chicken house. There's companies working with robots that are able to potentially detect chickens that are not doing as well, with machine learning, automation in the processing plant, trying to reduce some of the labor demands in the processing plant and the hatcheries and these really labor intensive places. I think as technology improves and specifically related to machine learning, I think there's some really interesting things coming up in the next 5 or 10 years that'll make some of these really labor intensive tasks easier.
What about genomics and gene splicing, those kinds of things? Do we see that playing a role much in the future?
In the chickens, I don't see any GMO chicken anywhere on the horizon.
Okay. Zach,
I don't think people would be too excited about that if they don't even like us feeding GMO grains to them. I don't think they would be super super enthusiastic about actually having GMO chickens.
Yeah, just kind of wondering if there were things that we could do to make them less or more resistant to things like coccidiosis and those kinds of things, through maybe not through manipulation, but just through genomic selection.
Yeah, I mean, they're constantly, the genetics companies are constantly selecting for better and better chickens on the genetic side, and they're absolutely looking at resistance to disease tied to performance and all these different traits when they're selecting the next generation of chickens. There's some really smart people that are absolutely working on that.
Yeah, I know back in college we had lines that were selected for susceptibility and resistance to different viruses or bacteria.
Well, then that's last call. What I'd like to do is have you guys leave the audience with two key takeaways from today's conversation.
Our last call question is brought to you tonight by Puricol. Look to Puricol choline chloride from Balchem to deliver the highest standards of quality, backed by the strictest process controls, for a level of purity, safety, and consistency you won't find anywhere else.
And we'll start with Zach.
So I think, especially with all the AI going around, that biosecurity is definitely important, especially during the winter months or until it's warmer. So everybody needs to pay attention to that. And also that gut health plays an important role in the bird and the overall health of it.
Very well. Andy, what can you tell us from a practical perspective?
Sure. I think there's always going to be challenges in raising livestock, whether that be poultry, beef, hogs, whatever. Managing that appropriately through husbandry and, modern science too, and technology. I think that is how things are going to move forward. And there's a lot on the horizon coming up. But getting back to basics is sometimes the best way to proceed.
Yeah, I like that. Back to basics. TJ, we'll give you the final word.
I'm really optimistic about the future of the poultry industry. I think it's an industry that's filled with really great people that have a really noble goal of trying to feed the population with wholesome and well-raised poultry, with an attention to animal welfare. I think that the future is bright for the business, and very fortunate to be a part of it.
Yeah, well said. Well said. TJ, Andy, Zach, thank you for joining us here at the pub table once again and sharing your insights, your experience, and your views on the future. As always, a big thank you to our loyal listeners for coming back once again to hear about the poultry industry and how it's evolving to meet the challenges for feeding a growing global population. I hope to see you next time here at the Real Science Exchange, where it's always happy hour and you're always among friends.
We'd love to hear your comments or ideas for topics and guests, so please reach out via email to anh.marketing@balchem.com with any suggestions, and we'll work hard to add them to the schedule. Don't forget to leave a 5-star rating on your way out. You can request your Real Science Exchange t-shirt in just a few easy steps. Just like or subscribe to the Real Science Exchange and send us a screenshot along with your address and t-shirt size to anh.marketing@balchem.com. Balchem's Real Science Lecture Series of webinars continues with ruminant-focused topics on the first Tuesday of every month, monogastric-focused topics on the second Tuesday of each month, and quarterly topics for the companion animal segment. Visit balchem.com/realscience to see the latest schedule and to register for upcoming webinars.